This is Larry Hedrick for Mysteries of Superstition Mountains, where we bring the past into the present for our future viewers. Today we have another great story by Jack San Felice.
Today's story is about Jenkins Lode, and it begins actually in the 1930s in the Superstition Mountains. And it starts with how I found this story. When I was looking for information on how to find books or booklets or something on the Superstition Mountains, because I was going to move to Arizona in 1992. Well, one of the books I found back east, believe it or not, was called Thunder God's Gold. It was written by Barry Storm, also known as John Clymonson. And he wrote this book. Outtakes of the book, actually part of the story in the book on the Lost Dutchman mine story, became a movie called Lust for Gold with Glenn Ford playing Jacob Walt, Ida Lupino, beautiful actress and director, playing Julia Thomas, and Gig Young. Well, Barry Storm, he was one of the first real adventurers that documented his adventures in the Superstition Mountains. Barry Storm had been staying in the 1930s while he was writing his book with a lady who was running a hotel at Tortilla Flat. Now, this is the story. The truth of the matter is, only the dead now know. Well, Barry Storm is kind of a young guy, and another woman comes along by herself, and she's staying at the hotel. Barry Storm has a bit of a fling with her. The Tortilla Flat lady catches Barry Storm. Aha. And so she kicks him out of the hotel. Barry Storm, in the meantime, takes his belongings and his desk and typewriter and takes it up to those ancient Indian caves. And in one of them, he makes himself a home for well over a year while he's finishing this little book of stories and legends of the Superstition Mountain. Living in a cave like a hermit, there was water, a water seep, and there you could cook there. He had a bed there, remnants. A lot of those old remnants were still there, left there by people, if not Barry Storm. But the story itself starts in, the gold story starts in 1937. In 1937, Barry Storm had become friends with, in the 30s, Bill and Marion Jenkins and their two young daughters, 10 and 11. And what they would do is meet around Canyon Lake, and they would follow what I call Boulder Creek. Barry Storm calls that Willow Creek, but that's misnamed now. It might have been then. Boulder Creek becomes LaBarge and into the mountains. He had gone in the 1930s several picnics with them. And one of the real clues to where Bill Jenkins found something was the fact that Marion would leave jars. She'd leave the jars there after they hike in, part of the picnic. It was part of and they'd stick them under logs or whatever, hide them in caves. But that was one of the main clues later on. Well, in 1937, Bill and Marion and the two girls park by the bridge. They drive out the old Apache Trail, and they park by the bridge, which goes to Canyon Lake. And on the other side, they park. And they decide they're going to walk up, which they usually do, Boulder Creek, LaBarge, Boulder/LaBarge or whatever, and they walk into the mountains. Well, they walk about 3 hours. They're just not in a hurry. It's summer, and they're taking their time. It was in the morning. And they finally get to a place that where in the distance, they want to see Weaver's Needle. See, Weaver's Needle has become a focal point now in the 1930s of the search for the lost Dutchman gold mine, based, of course, on what happened to Adolf Ruth. And Adolf Ruth's story was in almost every newspaper. A missing government man from Washington, D.C. disappears in the Superstition Mountains. And he's not found, of course, we all know that story. He's not found for 6 months. He's not found, his skeleton. Well, anyhow, that drew a lot of people wanting to hike in the mountains. There was no such thing as First Water Road at that time. There was a cowboy trail in old bumpy dirt wagon road. And the easier way was to park by the lake and walk up. So here they are. They get to a place where there's a good, they want to have a picnic because there's a log, a big log where they can all sit on and have their picnic lunch. Now Barry Storm's not with them now. So they do that. And Bill Jenkins decided he wants to walk up the wash a little bit where there's a little flat top hill where he can then look out and get a better view of Weaver's Needle. While he's on that walk, he finds a bright piece of quartz, and he picks it up, and it's heavy. He says he's going to bring it back for Marion because she evidently collects quartz pieces. So he walks around and he walks with this heavy piece of quartz, and it's getting heavier and heavier, and he decides he's going to come back, and he finally makes his way back. He doesn't take note of where he found it because the hillside that he was on, the type of rock that was in the quartz the whole hillside was covered with it. So he didn't pay any attention. But when he carries that big piece, and it's about the size of a human head, skull, and so he carries that big piece all the way out to their vehicle at Canyon Lake. And curiosity, he's going, why'd I lug this all this way? He's telling himself. So he has an old wrench and he breaks it in half. It opens up. Inside is dazzling gold, free gold, not microscopic gold, not gold mixed with other elements, which is usually the case in Arizona. But free gold, it looks like it's pretty close to being pure. But they don't get excited. You see, the Jenkins family have no clue what gold looks like in the raw. So he gets home and he calls Barry Storm to come look at it because Barry Storm's his buddy, a treasure hunter, and he could tell him. Barry Storm says, well, what you got here is great. Where'd you find it? Well, Jenkins don't actually tell him where he found it except in the Superstition. And Barry said, give me half. I'll go get it assayed. John Foreman in Phoenix will assay it for me. So he goes to the assayer and he calls up Bill, I got to meet with you. He don't want to tell him this when he gets over there. He said, what you have found is bonanza ore. It's worth it assays out at $2,000 a ton. Well, you don't think that's much at $2,000 a ton. That this piece, well, what would it be worth then if he figured it out? Well, see, gold was only $15 an ounce in the 1930s. Well, he tells the story, and he's trying to get Bill Jenkins to give him some more information. So Barry Storm goes out to where he parked the car and where they started in the mountains. He followed this trail part ways, and then he loses it, so he comes back. In the meantime, Bill Jenkins had taken his piece to Foreman also and got it assayed and gets that story and gets all excited. And he decides that he's not going to tell exactly where he found it because he don't want to give his secret away, okay? And that's the secret. It's a lost lode of Jenkins is the storyline. So back and forth, Barry Storm goes with Bill Jenkins. And the very next week, Bill Jenkins' wife, is a government employee, gets transferred to Tucson. And so that family ups and moves to Tucson. And it's not an easy thing in those days. The roads weren't certainly very good, mostly dirt, to drive from Tucson to Phoenix. So they write letters back and forth. And Barry Storm is trying to get this Bill Jenkins to come back because he can't find the trail. He can't find it. If you go in and out of the mountain, that's a pretty rugged area there. And if during the monsoon season, it would wash the trail away, see, up and down. Well, finally, they get an agreement that Bill's going to come up, and it's 1939 now. 2 years have gone by. And he writes to him that he'll meet him at a certain place and he'll take him in, and they'll become partners. Because Barry Storm knows what to look for. Bill Jenkins really don't. He knows what's inside, but he don't know how to look on the outside to tell that's ore rock or whatever. Well, Barry Storm don't hear from him. He fails to make the meeting. And he doesn't hear from Marion for quite a while. Finally, he reaches Marion by phone, and she tells him Bill did go there, but the day he was supposed to meet you, he had a heart attack and died. Well, that puts the family and everything in disarray again. Marion, in the meantime, she remarries. Another year or so goes by. Barry Storm says, I've got to go. I'm losing a hot trail. And he wants Marion to draw him a map, the best that she could do. Well, this is the map, supposedly drawn by Marion Jenkins and her two daughters. It really don't tell you much. There's Weaver's Needle, this would be LaBarge, and these are the mountains. Wow, you can't find anything. So he talks and he talks to Marion, and finally he gets the story a little clearer, so he's going to go in and look for it. He hikes up Boulder and goes into LaBarge, and he follows a place in LaBarge where it was similar to what Bill Jenkins had said and what Marion and the two girls had said. And by the way, he signs a deal with Marion. If he finds anything, he would give her 1/3 of everything he finds. Barry Storm finds a log where they had lunch because their bottles, or jars rather, hermetically sealed the food in mason jars, whatever. Anyhow, the jars are her pickles and whatever she carried. And that was a long way to carry all that, but they found it. It's still there because glass is not going to disappear unless it breaks. So up on the side of a hill, they find this. Barry Storm knows he's in the area, but then there are little canyons that go back and forth and this way and that way. And so he's at a loss. He's trying to follow that trail, but he's not having any luck. Finally, he finds the area for which to search. And that's in his story, that's in his book. Under Jenkins Gold, Lost Gold. So he finds the area to do a search. And of course, it's 1941 then. And then here comes December of 41. In 1942, America's involved in a world war. I don't know if from reading Storm whether or not he went in the military or not. I don't know. But Barry Storm then lost the ability to follow that hot trail in there. And that kind of takes you to what is the end of Bill Jenkins' Lost Lode. Now, at $2,000 a ton in the 1930s, at $15 an ounce, would make that find, if there was a lot of that ore there, it would make it worth $3 million a ton. If you take $1,800 today, $1,800 an ounce, you rationalize it to the $2,000 a ton, and you make it out to about $3 million. That's a lot of money. That is bonanza ore. So I've read this. I find this book, And I'm trying to learn about the Superstition Mountains and how to go in and whatnot. Well, it's 1989 and I'm out here. I can't find that area because I don't know anything about this area. So I come back in 1992, I move here. In between 92 and 2000, I'm exploring everything on the western end of the Superstition Mountains. I've been east, and I'll tell you that story. I've been throughout the mountains and all that time period. But I am on a hike in 2001 from First Water. I took this group that wanted to hike from First Water all the way to Canyon Lake. So we drive to Canyon Lake, leave some vehicles, drive back to First Water, and hike in from First Water, out past Garden Valley, Second Water, the red paint mines, etc. LaBarge intersects, and up on the side of LaBarge is the trail going up a mountain that I call Never Ending Mountain, because it never ends. Just when you get to one level, you think you're there. No, there's another level and another level. Well, when we're taking backward photographs to replicate this hike in the future, I look back down in the valley of LaBarge and I see two mines, two dig holes, two holes in the ground and mine dump beside them. So we hike on out, and I make note and I take photographs. We get to the Canyon Lake, we have lunch, and we go on our way. Well, a lot of things happened in 2000, and I don't really get back there until 2005. In the meantime, I'd hiked in First Water, I'd gone to red paint mines, I'd hiked that whole area. But now I've got these photos, and I'm looking at them, I said, I gotta go back and find out where they are. But it's too long to hike in from First Water down. It's about 20 miles. That's a long way, because you zigzag back and forth. You just don't go straight. Well, Jack Carlson and I, we go, and we're hiking in one morning. We start the hike at 9 a.m. And we go up Never Ending Mountain backwards, so to speak, and we're looking for an overlook where we found this photo in Barry Storm's book. So in this book, there's this photo, and I copied it. And I want to go up there and replicate it because it's an overview, and it shows from here LaBarge, the Boulder Connection, and Battleship Mountain, Weaver's Needle, all of these things that Storm had talked about in his other stories. So we're going out there. We go out there and we're going up the trail, Never Ending Mountain, and there's a little dogleg. It's a faint trail that I said, Jack, where does this go? And he says, well, I'm not sure what this is called. So we push through the brush and past some trees, and we walk into a little valley that Jack Carlson had never been there. He didn't know it was there. So I said, Jack, let's follow this up and see if we can find the overlook where this photo was taken. And so we walk up, we're taking photographs as we get there. And as we get up to the overlook, I bring out the photo and I said, this is it. I said, so let's take all these photos, good photos now, and if we find anything, we'll have something to talk about. So we follow this and we take the photos, then we go up further. And Jack says, I think there's a trail that leads down, according to his map, there's an old trail, leads around, was a cowboy trail. So we get up there, we find a fence line. The fence line up there, an ungodly place for a fence line. It's right on the edge of cliffs. So on one side, there's the cliff looking north out toward Tortilla Flat. And the other cliff, there's, you're overlooking LaBarge. So we figure the trail goes down the mountain. Now Jack goes ahead while I'm taking more photos. So I'm taking more photos so I can find my way back in case we find something. So he goes on down the trail. He's ahead of me. I start following him down the trail. And lo and behold, the trail narrows. It goes from here to 1 foot. And the drop off is like 50 to 75 feet. Yeah, it's a drop off. I turn the bend and there's a big rattlesnake in the trail on a 1 foot trail, a big rattlesnake. And he's rattling, and apparently Jack had set him off, got him, and Jack didn't see him. He must have been in the brush. So I go toward him, I throw some pebbles, he won't move. He's just not moving. And all of a sudden I hear rattling behind me on the little hillside there's a hillside, the little trail, then the cliff. It's like a L shape. I hear rattlesnake. I can't see that snake, but I can see the snake in front of me. Like I always carry a hiking stick, and I had probably a 5-6 foot stick then. So I ease up on the old snake, prod him with my stick, and slide him off and I didn't want to shoot him because then Jack Carlson come running back up and he might get hurt. So I just slide him off, and then I hike on down. And we hike down till you get down to LaBarge Creek, LaBarge Canyon Creek. And on the way down there, it's poppy season when we're hiking, and the poppies are everywhere. Now it's a hard hike to climb up through that valley, go around, go back down, and we saw things we wanted to photograph on the way. And by the time we get down there, we're tired. It's time to take a break, so we eat our lunch. It's in the afternoon, eat a little lunch. And we stop, we're sitting right in a big field, this field of flowers, Mexican gold poppies. Well, you eat, you get a little tired, you get a little sleepy. Both Jack and I fall asleep. The next thing I know, some big furry animal's licking my face. And I wake up, and it's this huge dog. He's about the size of a St. Bernard. I don't know, I thought it was a bear at first. Where did this dog come from? We holler for people, don't see anybody. What I do, I said, I'll give the dog some snacks out of my knapsack, which I did, my backpack. And I give him something, and then we're playing with the dog. Next thing I know, he takes off and he's gone. As we saw him, he disappeared. So we know right across LaBarge are those two mines. We go over across LaBarge and we find them. Well, they're about 25, 30 feet deep, and I'm not going in them because it looks like all decomposing rock material, conglomerate, what is like rocks and dirt put together. But the rocks are ringed with, the two shafts are ringed with timbers. So, and they're old timbers, they're handmade timbers. So somebody was there a long time ago digging, and their mine dumps are substantial. So the shafts had apparently collapsed in because the amount that was taken out is going to overfill. So we look all around for minerals, for gold, for what, and we climb up and down those hills and we're trying to follow the story. We don't see anything that's mineral, let alone quartz. Now, wait a minute. Let me backtrack. They were there in the 1930s, and I'm here in the 1990s. This is almost 60 years in time. A lot of floods could have gone down there, changed everything. But while we're walking around, right diagonally across from those two prospects, we find an old cave. And I said, and I heard the story the Dutchman had a cave, right? I said, this must be the Dutchman's cave. It's got to be. What did I know? Okay, there's smoke, there's in there, soot filled on the ceiling. People have been in there a long time. And it's not easy to find it. There are trees right in front of the opening. And so you have to really see it from across LaBarge to get over there and then to find it. Well, I go inside and I pick up an old rusted Prince Albert can, I think it is. It's a can. And all of a sudden, a gecko jumps out in my hand. Now I got the dog licking my face, and now I thought, first I thought it was a snake, right? Whatever. And it jumps in my hand, and I grab him, but I don't hurt him. It's a green gecko, and I play with him for a little while. Jack Carlson gets a couple of photos, and I set him down. So I'm looking around the cave and trying to find out if there's anything else. I come across a beer bottle from the 1800s. Well, how do I know it's a beer bottle from the 1800s? Because I'd had gotten beer bottles, old broken ones, from the Silver King mine. So I know that. Fact is, this arrowhead was made from the bottom of a half-inch thick beer bottle from the 1800s from Silver King mine. So I know what they look like, and that's it. Someone was there in the 1800s. Well, as we go along in the story, Jack and I find out a little bit later that this cave was perhaps the cave of John Tuning, who looked for gold out in that area. He thought maybe the Dutchman's ore or the lost soldiers' gold was there. And he was housed out of Tortilla Flat. He stayed there. Tortilla Flat is not as you know it today. There were houses on both sides. And during the one flood, it washed all the houses in the early 1900s off of the west side. We spent a lot of time looking for gold, right? Up and down, inspecting that ore, finding that old cave, and other things that we had making notes. We want to go back there. Time is fading away on us. We're trying to rest up, and we're making a decision now. Well, here we are, 2/3 of the way around the mountain. If we go back the way we did, it's going to take us 6, 7, 8, maybe 8 hours going back up that way, because that's a long way to go. We think, well, maybe we can go down creek towards Canyon Lake, LaBarge, and then we could find the trail which goes up. There is a trail that marked by cairns. Well, we're looking for the cairns. We don't see them. We go back. We stop because the water is gotten too deep. While we're asleep, the water goes from running to rushing, and we walk toward the narrows, and the water is at 8 feet deep in places. So I said, we got to go back. And we're looking for this trail up. We passed it somehow. So we go back a 1/4 mile, crisscrossing the creek, and we don't find the cairns. I said, it's getting dark. I said, Jack, we got to go. I don't think I could go back up the other way. Too long, too hard, too difficult, too wet. So we go back down, and where the cairns should have been, somebody had moved them 30 feet. But it was dark. 30 feet in the dark is a long way. Luckily, my wife had given me a hat. Not a hat, but a lamp that goes on your hat, and it has long-lasting batteries. It was dark, it's raining, we're lost in the superstition where people would die, right? Jack, we got to get out of here. So, and there's a big dog running around. So we're going up the mountains. I tell you, we're trying to find that place where we find a little trail, and we go up. Now, it's not a very long hike up, but to get there, you have to go through waist-high water, and we did that. And we get through the water, and by then, my leather boots weigh about 20 pounds apiece. My shorts are wet. They're soaked. I have rubber knee braces on. They're soaked. My shirt is soaked. Everything is soaked on me up to here. And as you're going uphill, and it's dark and it's raining, we're slogging along, and it takes forever. I think I go 20 feet, stop. 20, and I got a backpack, carrying stuff out, my camera and all that stuff that you take on a hike. It's important. So it takes us forever. We don't get back to Canyon Lake till 10 o'clock. My wife is calling around looking for us. It's a long way to go. You can see the green line is the way we came back to the marina, but the red line is going down and all the way around. That is twice as far as going that, more than twice as far. So we said, we got to go back that way. Jack will never make it the other way, and we do. Jack Carlson has, I believe that trail is in here. His book, Trails West, Jack Carlson, Elizabeth Stewart, great book. There's trails east, trails west. So I spent a lot of time in there. In the Superstition Mountains, there are main entranceways, and one's Peralta Trail, the other's the south side of the Superstition, and then there the other way that you would come in through First Water, and then the other way is down off the lakes or the Salt River. That's the other entrances. Because you just can't say, I'm gonna walk in the mountains. Impossible. You have to take the trails, known trails, or known routes. Well, now we have another known route for which to go back. Well, this is 2005. In 2006, I become work-oriented in the Silver King mine. I become friends with the Dean family, and I go on into the Silver King, and we've made 8 of those videos. So that's where I take off. So I really don't get back there a lot to search for it. Plus, my thought processes are leaning somewhere else to go in. But for somebody to go on a nice hike, if they want to go in there and follow Barry Storm's story, you can do it. I mean, you can do it. You can hike in, you can go all the way up and down Never Ending Valley. This is another grand mystery for the Superstition Mountains. It takes place in the 1930s and beyond, where people have gone in and searched for the lost Jenkins Lode. Nobody's found it. Nobody that I know of has ever found gold in there. It's another one of those mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.